Let's step up our game a bit and use those things we quit and laugh and smile and say we're lucky to be alive. It's time to start to do those things. The goals you set, the ones you call your dreams. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. So you're bringing it, the start of the year. You know you got nothing but cheer. Your family and your friends, they are so proud of you. It's time to start to do those things. The goals you set, the ones you call your dreams. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. You're born who you are. You change what you have to. You're born who you are. You can change if you have to. You're born who you are. You must change 'cause you want to. It's time to focus on your dreams. Put them off so long, they're there but can't be seen. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. Let's step up our game a bit and use those things we quit and laugh and smile and say we're lucky to be alive. It's time to start to do those things. The goals you set, the ones you call your dreams. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. So you're bringing it, the start of the year. You know you got nothing but cheer. Your family and your friends, they are so proud of you. It's time to start to do those things. The goals you set, the ones you call your dreams. But how hard do you try? You're lucky to be alive. You're born who you are. You change what you have to. You're born who you are. You can change if you have to. You're born who you are. You must change 'cause you want to. It's time to focus on your dreams.
Good morning and welcome to Lyceum, those of you in person and those of you online. My name is Jamie Osmond Ratcliffe and I am here to introduce our speaker. But before we do that, I'm going to make a couple of announcements. Today we have a workshop from 2 to 4 called Advanced Mediumship with Reverend Claire Van Cott. It's $25. That is what's going on for the rest of the day. But I want to mention that tomorrow, January 25th, is the 158th anniversary of the founding of the Children's Lyceum. This was facilitated by Andrew Jackson Davis, to which this building is named after. But now I'm going to introduce our speaker today for Lyceum, or our teacher, I should say. Today we have Joyce Sagar. He is an SCSEMA certified medium and healer, and he is also an avid photographer on his time off, who has so eloquently helped in capturing the essence of our community and for generations to come. So I'd like to introduce Joy to the platform. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here in person, and thank you for being there with us virtually. And we'll let the newly arrived settle a bit. This is an adult lyceum. Oh, wonderful! More the merrier. This is an adult lyceum, and the structure is to share knowledge and exchange ideas of growth and development, history, training, etc. within the spiritualist movement and our pursuit of that. So it's going to be gently interactive. So be prepared to speak up and participate, and blend in with the conversation as it goes along. So Christmas morning, I got a knock on the door, and I see one of our camp mediums and teachers, and he was my certifying evaluator in the past, Reverend Dr. Louis Gates. He was handing me a little gift basket, say, "Joy, this is for you." And I happened to receive this beautiful first edition book called Mediums and Their Mediumship. It was printed in 1946, so I've been thumbing through it, reading some of this material, so this is going to come into play when we go into our conversation and talks, etc. So I just would like to see, with a small, gentle participation of raising of your hands, how many of us have participated in a mediumship class or working with mediumship in its own way? Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And those that have not, just don't feel that you don't. We all use our intuition on an ongoing basis. So, classroom is classroom, but everything is there. So 2003 is where my journey started. I use my life stories as an example of where it is. Standing at the door of Colby Temple down the street and wondering, what should I do? So I walked in and I attended the service, and that was sort of my first intro there, how a message service is being run. And this was really cool. So it brought me back again the second time, and then rest is history, and we are here. Now why we bring this up, because 2003 and 2021 is so far apart. Life has changed in a very drastic manner. Right now we cannot go anywhere because of our unusual circumstances. So let me take you back in time to 2003, 2006 time period. And then through this book and these conversations, we'll go even further back in time. So once my interest started in what is this all about, because somewhere I kind of knew, this is natural to me. I get those nudges and inputs, and I can study people, and I like to see, how things are moving. So that was my sort of step 0.1 into development and growth with mediumship per se. So I said, let me explore what this is about. So when we were here in classes, I will tell you just how time has transitioned. The community itself of psychics and mediums allowed us to be a part of almost daily development circles, classes, lectures, lyceums like this one. So we had so many platforms and opportunity to be a part of this journey of learning. And this is where I'm wanting to highlight. There was classrooms, sometimes there was standing room only in classrooms, especially if they're visiting mediums coming and teaching us what they have learned over time. Now, spirit circles were historically where the development or the growth started. So if you go back in the mid 1900s or early 1900s or late 1800s, you would find documentation or the mediums sharing their growth process. It was always sitting in a circle, sitting in a circle, consistently staying in that circle and working with the skill set, or just sitting and waiting for that one day when you would have clear as a day message in your ear, or you hear something out of the ordinary. So you sit and you sit and you sit and you sit, and one day you're on to that path. So you understand that part of the process. It's that consistency that continues to allow us to grow our skill set, right? And that's the part of what you would understand. When I came here, it was not 1900s, but believe me, I was here attending class or doing something 6 days out of the week. Sometimes all day long, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes a few hours in the evening on weekdays between my work and home and here. It was all a big part of just sponge, just take in all that is there. So we had teachings that taught us the precepts of mediumship, step 1, 2, and 3, and we drew into, I want to say it was like a bait that was just like to hook you into one more thing and one more thing. But it was an evolution, it was a growth, it was a development that allowed me to just keep my movement moving forward in there. So that was one precept. The other part of that was those spirit circles in 2003 and 2006 allowed me to participate from the get-go instead of sitting for hours on end knowing to understand the process for myself. They really exposed me to take a leap of faith and take that one step in saying whatever's sitting here or whatever I'm feeling to test I was right or wrong. When I look back at this, I want to say I would recommend everybody to sit in the silence and the quiet to take on what's going on. And that's where one of the precepts of teaching, as we will read through some of these nudges that these writers have given, to sit in that silence allows us to separate what is mine and what is coming through as an external cue. So it's not always the internal dialogue. So things are also happening around us in close vicinity. So to understand that, that nudge, that voice that is there, how it speaks to us, right? So if I were to take myself back and forth and where I am today, I do enjoy spending a lot of time in silence or taking myself out in the nature where I'm detaching from noises around me, but going into the nature, trying to listen to, the bird is singing, or, ooh, something cracked. Is there an alligator there? Or is there some threat is there? What comes out of this bush? What jumps at me? Maybe it's a palm warbler that jumps out. And so there's a point of discovery, what I'm wanting to say. When we sit in silence, we get to discover what is within us, what is mine to deal with, what is mine to separate from, what belongs to somebody else that is sitting in front of me. So that learning has a nice foundation to it, right? So if you go into the world religions and world cultures, if you go to very old ancient precepts, you would find that commune with self or sitting in silence is a big foundation for pretty much all major religions. No matter how you dissect it, it's there. How you interpret it, but it's still there. So that was an interesting parallel for me as I went through reading this. Plus, I enjoy continuing education, so I'm still learning. I learn every day. I go take classes, and I'm constantly pushing myself. And I think that's the most interesting part of this is the growth is never ending. So this is practice of mediumship or practice of being a psychic or practice of being a healer. Just like they're practicing doctors and surgeons, they're always practicing. This art or skill set is never perfected in some way, shape, or form. So you have to understand, no matter what station of life you're on, it's a practice mode. Nothing is finalized. And I always say and just chuckle at it, the day I will finalize, that'll be the end of me. That'll be the time I probably choose to take my last breath and say, see you, everybody. But I think that's how it is. Once we find that vulnerability or that consistent, like, okay, I'm comfortable where I am, things cease to exist. And the growth is done. And I can say, if you don't want to look too far, you see in the plants that you have at home or the animal, once they've grown their size, they're somewhere, they're consistent, they're fine, day at a time, doing the same thing. 'thing. But a part of me knows when I stop, I think it'll be time for me to take a step back. And I think that's the most important part of this is the growth is never ending. So this is I'm comfortable where I am, things cease to exist. And I can say, if you don't want to look too far, you see in the plants that you have at home or the animal, once they've grown their size, they're somewhere, they're consistent, they're fine, day at a time, doing the same thing. But a part of me knows when I stop, I think it'll be time for me to take a leave, a permanent absence. But that's my journey with that. The other part, what was going on at that time was there was so much opportunity not to only have education. And if we go back in time, sometimes the circles were just there to push their own power to make things happen, which translates in terms of physical mediumship, to make ourselves an instrument or reservoir of energy that then we can communicate with the spiritual energies, use our energy to make things happen or experience what is coming out of it. So my journey was very intrigued. We had a very dedicated circle of 5 months, and we sat every day. Same people, same seating, same arrangement, to just develop our own skill set to make the trumpet move or make some activity happen which is out of our physical norm. And that was such an enjoyable thing because it was not about getting to know everybody. It was no social time. There was a purpose, there was a commitment, and there was consistency. So once again, doing the same thing over and over again allows us to get comfortable. It becomes a second nature. And mediumship, psychic ability, healing, no matter what we do in life, unless it becomes a secondary nature to us, we are still in the process of learning. We're still in the process of that. You know, it's like I can do things in my sleep. That's what it means to say second nature. You know, once you do walk, talk, breathe, everything becomes that is there. So a part of the encouragement as the journey is, no matter where you are, whatever your growth process is, if you are a medium that has been established for many years, if you are choosing to learn and grow, you will consistently push on that boundary. You will consistently push on that aspect of what more, what more, what more. Now, if you go back in written history of spiritual work, there are so many detours. I call it detours at the moment because one mediumship is not just straight. It goes in many directions. And things to occur or manifest also happens in many different ways and different directions. And that exploration can always keep us on our toes. So, you know, you give a reading and you're sitting doing the same thing over and again. At some point you have to say, you know, how do I nurture myself? You know, let's play with automatic writing. Let's go do some spirit writing and see what that is about. Or what the spirit drawing is all about. If I can draw something, even if it's a stick figure, and that is close to a human person, so be it. But it's about the play. It's about that exploration. What I got hooked into was that consistent play that was being created. And the child within me still knows how to play. So if I'm having an opportunity and I know this is something new, a new person, to learn what they know about, I'm always there. So to all that are present here, life is becoming more isolating because all the comfort things are within our homes. Our toys are at home. We are creating this micro family environments that we don't know how to interact with each other. We can only stand for a certain amount of time, and then we are aching and itching to go back in our little bubbles and stay safe there. And I feel that is somewhere is to be noticed. But this development comes when there are people around. And why does that happen? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people on this side, if we get to connect with each other, we charge up, we amp up. It's almost like, if I can bring a relevant example, how many of us know how the solar panel works and how the battery banks work with that? We understand what the solar panels are, the panels that draw, and they have to be connected to a battery bank to regulate the power. So you understand the basic concept, right? Think of yourself, there are 6, 7 solar panels over here. Now you have to charge the battery. So when you come together, connecting with the same intention, same mind, you're charging that cumulative energy for that same purpose and intent. So if you have more than 2 people at home, you can still create the circle, even if it's for the 2 or the family. Include the children, allow them to learn what it feels when you bring up the energy. So it doesn't have to be in classes all the time. Because the best circles happen at home, in the backyard, in the dining room, or in the kitchen. Those circles, that's how they work. So we're talking about solar panels. So we are all panels drawing the energy of the spirit, collecting it somewhere to have that experience. And that's the simplest way of saying, to build your energy and amp your energy and take it in that direction. Okay. So mediumship can go in many different directions of clairvoyance. There are several clairs that you can work about: clear seeing, clear hearing, sensing, knowing. There's so many different ways of discovering that. Now, what is interesting is when I was reading this book, there is a gentleman named William H. Jackson. And he writes, this book was compiled in 1946. And I will read verbatim, so it's not just my own information. In the very beginning of your development, Mr. Jackson suggests that you do not hold in your mind in any certain phase of mediumship. So it says in the very beginning. I want to say a lot of mediums know after many years of their professional work or being commissioned or certified, credentialed, still are at that beginning level. And I have a privilege to join myself in there. And I will tell you, I share this story very frequently. So in my growth and development process, we have to take platform class here that allows us to be able to introduce the speakers or conduct the service and help in any shape or form. And then I became a student, so I could do public messages and works. So through that 1 week, 1 month, one mediumship phase was very active, right? And I'm like, I'm ready, and my teacher is pumping me up to, yes, you can do it, be confident in yourself. Joy knows that, this is working, is going to be sure shot there. I get up on the platform like this one in the church, and I am completely swiped. There's nothing there. And I'm like, what happened? Absolutely, I drew a blank, and I was in front of the mic. It's not even I'm sitting in the chair. And I'm like, oh. The only thing that rang bell in my mind, the spirit world or the spirit community never lets you down. So having trust and faith in that commitment of that process is going to come into play. So just like this says in the very beginning, you don't know. And I learned that lesson. It is not consistent. And I still remember to this day. This is not about cookie cutter formula. There is no cookie cutter formula in this work, in this way of growth and life and commitment. You have to be on your toes. You have to be on your best game every time. And you have to be always alert, connected to the spirit world, knowing, listening, feeling what they're trying to impress. Right? Now, I would say there is some basic vocabulary that we call a spirit vocabulary or spirit alphabet that says a red color means a certain things at all times. True. And a red station wagon would mean something at a certain time. But that's your personal language, right? That's your personal language. You create the vocabulary for you, not so much for the individual that is sitting in front of you. So that red color means something to me, but how it takes place in the reading or a session can change the meaning or understanding of how it's applicable. So you cannot say, I'm only going to see the red color when this is happening. You cannot put that command, because here it would say any of the phases may come to you, or perhaps several phases may come to you at the same time, but it requires spirit experimentation to know how it works. So the vocabulary that what we are setting is our own vocabulary that works for us as a student, as a learner, as somebody who's pursuing it. But how you translate, that translation can shift subtly or gently on a case-by-case basis. So you have to understand, you cannot be easing into that definition that I got it all or I figured things out. Because a part of this is also going to shift back on an ongoing basis. Now, if you are all ready for it, this is very important, because I think this is what is driving the whole thing. But it requires much spirit experimentation to discover just which phase will be the most suitable for you. Okay? And I'm going to stop here, because we all have primary skill set, right? Some people are good at feeling the information that I'm feeling, what I'm feeling, But none of these phases work independently. You cannot be feeling everything at all times. Somewhere it resonates in an inner clairaudience, or it becomes a vision to you, or it becomes something totally, it's on your olfactory, you can taste things. But first is almost, if you have your clairsentience strong, you would say, I'm feeling I'm holding an orange. Now, when you said I'm holding an orange, you made it tangible for yourself. And then the secondary phase would be like, maybe I can smell this orange, or maybe I can taste it on my taste bud. It can go many different ways. The clairvoyance can say, what does this orange look like, or what was the color of it? If this is about a family member giving somebody oranges all the time they were visiting their home, that can be so tangible piece of information to say, that's real. I remember so-and-so gave me oranges every time I visited their home, and that's exactly what the orange was like, But it's a part of the first primary instinct. Now, some people can be just clairvoyants. They get a vision and then they decipher the emotion and the language of interpretation that goes with it. So it can run in many different phases, but primary, one phase will be more dominant for you at all times. So that would be your starting point. Every other secondary, third, fourth, fifth phase, a different clair will be running in conjunction with that. So it takes two senses to make this work. And it goes to say further, and you only hold back your own progress by constantly turning your own thought only to that phase which you particularly desire. I don't know how many of us that practice or learn or pursue this want information just the way we are becoming consistent. Like I was saying, the complacent is sort of the killer of the growth. Never settle for complacency. And that's what it means, I only want clairvoyantly, I only want specific information. I have my little checklist to run down with this, and this takes us to say, it's like mundane, it's repetitive, it's boring. At some point you'll be like, same thing over and over again, same information. But the part is to keep ourselves open. Let that first ability lead you to the second ability. And William Jackson continues to say, he has found that some people demand a certain phase of mediumship. And I feel we still get to see this in modern day times with the practitioners. I'm a clairvoyant or I'm a clairaudient, but it's a complex structure. It doesn't necessarily work that. Maybe they're saying that is my primary strength or my primary skill set, and then everything works along with it. But if somebody says this is one thing, it kind of doesn't work that way. Okay, I'm going to go into the dictionary part of it. I skipped the ABCs of mediumship, but I have lots of Ds for you. So there are no ABCs since we don't have a structure. We're going to go with all the Ds. Now, I am wanting to talk about this very gently because this may apply to your mediumship, or it could just apply to the natural flow of life that wherever you are. So the first D is when you want to understand if mediumship or any given work is your work, because we have to live life, right? So the first D, as I was listening to the Spirit this morning, was given, it's desire, right? And you have to understand a strong feeling of wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen, right? So that 2003 was the time phase I had the desire, I can do this. This is naturally has all been there for the last 30 years of my life. But now that took a little different motive and motion is there. Then my desire took wings, or it became stronger with that. So I just know I had a desire to work with this skill set. I had a desire to work with that. Prior to that, I was already working as an astrologer. So I already sort of had my discernments in place, but this was like, I don't have to have an astrology chart in front of me. This is so more natural and organic. But I'm just saying that desire was set in motion. So if you're wanting to know if mediumship is your thing to do, one, that you have to attend classes to make an assessment how you feel connected with yourself, and then constantly check, where is that desire, where is that never-ending place of say, I can come back to it. Like they say, when you wake up in the morning, the thing that you want to do the most, that's something that fits the situation to say, where that movement is there. The next D in that vocabulary is devotion. And I was like very thrilled because I was not thinking from my own box here. I was thinking somewhere out loudly. So this devotion was very intriguing for me because the definition says love, loyalty, or enthusiasm for a person, activity, or a cause. And I find myself, not because I'm a medium, I consistently say that, I have a passion for spirit world and spiritualism because it has hit a core in me. It's not because I can be a medium that allows me possibilities in many different ways, but it speaks to me. And I have a love for it. I have a sense of enthusiasm for it is there. So, I would like to say, going back to giving examples, all these prominent personalities in any given field of work has a devotion to what they do. We can talk about Mother Teresa, we can talk about Warren Buffett, we can talk about Tesla, we can talk about old Nikolai Tesla. They had a passion, they had a devotion, and they had a desire to do something with it. And they ran with what woke them up and got them wings under their feet to do this day in and day out, right? But I'm also recognizing when I was growing up, you got to have a good education, you got to have a good job, you need to get married, you got to have family. Those parameters are set so much in our lives that we are like, where do we land ourselves? But slowly I've learned to allow things to happen. That takes me to many different places, and I'm sure it will take you to many different places. The third D is development, the process of developing or being developed. Now, when I read this book is not about just the mediums, but it is about what trained them or how they trained themselves. So this William Jackson talks about being open to spirit and connecting and strengthening his own phases over time. And eventually, he was a very good trumpet medium, which could make the trumpet move or speak or float. So once again, physical mediumship is being unfolded for him. But as he's talking about in this chapter, there is a beauty in saying, let it happen, let it come. You acknowledge your gifts, you acknowledge your skill set, unfolding just the way they are supposed to be. And then you will understand that. Now, my next person to talk about is Birdie Lily Candler. And she was in the early 1900s. And she talks about something very relevant. She says, but there is so much more to it than just sitting in a class. In the first place, a person's desires for medium should be activated by the right motive. And I think that speaks volume to me. We understand sometimes our need to feel safe is very important. But somewhere within our growth process at a station of our life, that safety is already met as a consistent thing that we need to go with that. But always the right intention will lead you to the right outcome. Even if it's, sometimes they say, even if it's for the wrong cause, the right intention will lead you to the right purpose. But you have to understand, this work is very primordially based on intention. Where is my heart? Where is my intention? What am I wanting to do with it? Am I exploiting somebody else's need or vulnerability, or I'm trying to raise that same frequency to give them a platform where they have a little bit more jump in their life, a little bit more nice placement where they can move into that part? What is the motive behind your work? Some people do it just for themselves because that's all they need. That's all they need, something for themselves. So what is your motive? What moves you in this aspect of work? You have to pay attention. Mediumship for selfish gain is as great a sin as violation of any of the commandments. So understanding the time this was written is still a very Christian background, but it's the same thing. You're creating something that doesn't have to be created. So understand the motive and purpose and intention behind whatever we are doing. And I think that will lead us to a beautiful place. Now, I'm going to jumpstart because the next D in this list is discipline. Discipline. Now, if you were to ask me discipline before 2003, I would say, yes, I know what discipline is. I've been disciplined many times. Right? Have numerously, sometimes just because it was the right lesson for me. That motive was correct for somebody to teach me that discipline. And that's okay. uh, I I learned this discipline as a practice, a discipline that gives me a structure. And that structure is almost saying, like, if you have to take care of this body, you have to have a certain discipline, what you're putting into it, how you're utilizing it, the hours you're keeping. The body's going to respond accordingly. And I know in the middle of this, we have a wonderful person who has experience of training and practice. That is a discipline itself. If going to the gym is a discipline, maintaining the strength and flexibility is a discipline. So all this is a discipline. Now, if you hear me say that mediumship is a muscle memory, and to have a consistent strength in that muscle, you need a discipline. So sitting in silence, listening to yourself, and if you have guides and if you have things of that nature in place, sitting in communion with them is a very consistent way of being in the discipline that feeds you on a spiritual level, and you feed it something that allows them to be with us, right? So I'm going to skip over here because I think this will make more sense at this point. Is Mr. Jackson, going back to Mr. Jackson says that you can neither demand nor command anything from the Spirit. And thus we go back to that square one. It'll be what it'll be. Joy's clairvoyance is not going to work today because he has to work with clairsentience, etc. So, understanding from that perspective, he believes that the first important step in developing mediumship is to try and touch God. Now, this was beautiful because in my continuing education recently, in the last few years, I have been studying with a lot of well-renowned mediums and going attending their classes and workshops, and they consistently talk about this phrase. And if I go track this down, even their teachers and mentors have said the same thing. What you're doing comes out to shine when you're touching a part of God within you, and then you allow that to touch the part of God into the person that is sitting in front of you. That's where all this becomes such a beautiful journey, is there. Now, this discipline is where I feel I have a big room for improvement for myself. And I can only speak for myself because that's the best discernment I have over anything else. You are living your own life. You're living your own journeys, those that are here, those that are with us virtually. You have to discern what discipline works for you, right? And you have to understand being organic, being in the flow, going with a sense that comes with the ease of that structure. You have to create that. A certain time of the day doesn't work for you to sit in silence and quiet. Why to make a struggle with it? Yes, you can make a struggle with it, but it will be unfolding in a different manner. You have to go against the grain in creating a pathway that might suit you. Will it be beneficial for you? Yes, it can be. But my part of being is, there's a beautiful phrase or the quote I heard is, if you really want to be very successful, hire the most laziest person because they know how to get the work done in the shortest amount of time. They'll find a way out of it. But you understand that? See? So I try to be on that same philosophy. I like a lot of thinking time. I just like a lot of idle time. So I know how to get my work done in a very nice, quick manner. So I figured that out about myself. But I know there is a part of the discipline that demands a lot of commitment. And that is about staying up, staying awake, staying concentrated, staying in focus. All this takes a lot of discipline. So understand that. So how many of us here knows how to roll a flatbread and make it a perfect circle? Has anybody done that? 1, 2, 3, 4. No? See? You can never do it on the day one. You can never do it with the first ball of dough. I think I can make it almost a perfect circle, but that almost is in capital letters. So take it with a little sense of aha there. But what I'm wanting to say is not everything comes to you naturally, perfectly in the first go. You have to do that with the consistency. You have to keep the drive with it. There had been many opportunities when I stand in my shoes and ask myself, is my heart in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Is my journey with this work is on purpose? And I ask that. I ask that all the time, at least a few times a year. I have to keep my own spirit in checks and balances. But every time I ask that question, life events unfold within the next few days that says, carry on, we got your back. And that's the part of me I was wanting to say to you. Everyone that sits in this room will grow in a different manner. Just like the snowflakes, we are all unique. We grow uniquely. We cannot say my journey needs to look like your journey or vice versa. You grow within your own beauty and you grow within your own essence of growth and just be remarkably enjoying with it. So to understand where that growth is, and you work with it. Now I'm going to open the platform to take questions. If you have any questions, please ask. Yes, sir.
I was wondering, why do you think it takes multiple times to meditate in a group or whatever, to bring about spirits, messages? Why would it take multiple times to generate that energy? Why don't they just come to you the first time you ask them, to show themselves, to educate you, to console you, to show you there's life after death, to give you information that will help you if that's what they want to do, or just to say hello? Why does it take so many times, to generate that? Why didn't they just come the first time?
Well, that's a beautiful question. And I'm trying to say, should I give you a smart answer or should I give you a simple answer? Well, let's go with the smart answer. All right? So I'm gonna give you we're going, and let's say we're going to go buy a car. And we go to the same dealership and we run into the same salesperson several times and never buy a car or never go to the next step of negotiation in some ways. Or the 10th time you would go there, you would say, oh, look, he's here again. And what I'm wanting to say to you is, as much as we would like to build a trust in the spirit world, it goes the same ways. They like for them to have trust in us that we will be there doing the right thing in the right fashion with the right intention and purpose behind it. And that's why sometimes it takes few go-arounds to get to that point of like, oh, now it's naturally flowing there. It's just as simple as that from my point of observation and my journey. It takes time to build that rapport. It takes that time to take us to the deal level where we can now make a deal and we can give each other the win-win situation. So it takes a little bit of time into finding that groove, per se. Yes, sir?
Why does that whole situation have to be that difficult?
It's actually not difficult.
Well, difficult might be a bad word, but...
Time-consuming?
I would still use something, personally, I would still use something along that line, because we were talking about sitting. My first couple months was, I had mayhem.
Uh-huh.
In my head. I did not have, where everything was clear, and I picked up, there was a lot of, I had to make sense of everything. There was a lot of war, chaos, mayhem, whatever word you want to use there. I had to get through before I could kind of get to the peaceful side of things.
Where are you today?
I'm more towards the peaceful side, but today
Was it worth it?
it's always worth it.
That's all the answer you need to know. It's not an easy answer for you to accept, but that's the answer you need to know. If you were still in that mayhem chaos, not getting out of it, then I would suggest to you, step aside from it, step away from it, let it settle down, and then reapproach. If it doesn't resolve, maybe then you have to understand that may not be the path that is truly yours. But you're already there, because as you were speaking, you're already on the other side of the fence. So you made it. Congratulations to you. Yes, ma'am.
Could it also, not only the trust, but it could also be a situation to where we're trying to quiet and we're trying not to be distracted by our thoughts, the mayhem, and all that stuff. We're having to learn to shut that out before we can see clearly.
Absolutely. It's almost like separating oil and water. Finding the need for that clarity is there. Now, I can once again speak from my journey. My upbringing is in a Christian family, but where I lived, there were 7 different religions living on the same neighborhood. And growing up as a child, being born in that community, we all took care of each other, and we were very respectful of that. So I'm just wanting to say, so when I have to go work in that aspect of what's mine and what's not mine, it allows me to just easily and gently separate that. But it's almost like what he's saying and what you're expressing. It's not an easy place of discerning to separate, and it just never has been the easy path for anybody. We sometimes, like they say, you make it look easy. How you just cut the tin snips and you made it fit perfectly. Well, we don't know how many years and how many cuts and bruises that person has gone through to make it look that simple. And I think that's the way it is, that consistent. The process is the fun process. Even if it's difficult or challenging, the process of separation is fun. I remember I used to help my mom separating lentils and rocks and stones and twigs. It was very annoying, but it was a part of our agreement. Sunday afternoon, we're going to prep this stuff. So I didn't like it. I was in chaos because I wanted to go play. I wanted to play marbles outside. But I had to go through. But once it was done, Mom said, oh, look, we both accomplished in 20 minutes instead of you doing it for an hour. Now you can go play. Yes, sir.
So if I use an analogy that I've always used for myself, and that is the spirit world or the voice of God or whatever, it never stops broadcasting. It's whether I'm receiving, whether I've tuned my radio enough to be able to discern, to hear, see, smell. So it's not, is the signal come to me? It's always come to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's am I open to
Receiving it.
accept it?
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it. And I would say that, I still believe in my own, what I learned through teachers here and all over the world. If your body is not in tune with the spirit world, maybe that's not a good day to practice your mediumship. If you're sick or if you're ill or there's too much chaos going on in a personal way, then it may not be the best platform to say, this is the day for me participating. Not everybody can be at that place of that. Sometimes circumstances are what they are. But that's always a discernment. Discernment is a big D in this list of discovering the mediumship, how we discern where we are, how we are positioning ourselves, is that. So, but thank you for bringing that up, because the broadcast is always never-ending thing, is there. Any other questions? Any other questions on the virtual platform? No. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for allowing me to share the few D's in the development process and the stories of these mediums. Now, what I will end the note is there's a reason biographies are very inspirational, crucial learning tool. We may learn something about a person, but we can always learn something about ourselves, often stepping in those shoes, how we would do things or how it would work for us. So these biographies or any biographies of any nature are a very good place to relate and make that language of yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Always food for thought. You always do that. Great. Thank you guys so much for joining us today for Lyceum, not only in person but online. Please stick around and stay tuned for our 10:30 Sunday services. And today we have Pauline Gold, who will be our lecturer. So be sure to hang out. Thanks and have a great day, everyone.